Okay, good morning. I'm very honored to be here, and the room always looks more crowded when you're up here. Holy cow, there's a lot of people here. I'm very excited to be here, although just a little bit more nervous than I was about 2.5 minutes ago when I heard that there are people cheering for him to get off the stage. The pressure is really on now for me to deliver. But I do want to open by really just saying how proud I am and thankful I am to be here in front of you. This is the 41st year, I guess, of the Logistics Officers Association. And I was trying to put that into context, and I'm thinking, well, 41 years ago, I first donned the uniform when I went into the Air Force Academy in the summer of 1982. So I didn't know what that meant. Does that mean, I'm old, you're young? I'm not sure, but I'll tell you the product as defined by the Logistics Officers Association really is professional development of our logistics professionals, and that couldn't be more important. And so I really am honored to be here and just share a couple of my thoughts because logistics is near and dear to my heart. But I got to tell you that the first thing I want to say is it's a great time to be in our Air Force. It is a fantastic time to be an airman, and it's a fantastic time to be in the logistics business. I think one of the reasons why is that the stakes could not be higher. And if you're doing something, if you're committing yourself to something, if you're sacrificing for something, you want it to matter. It's always mattered. Service has always mattered. The sacrifices have always been appreciated by the nation we're so proud to live in. But the stakes are high. Things have changed. We are now squarely in this period of competition where we have, as defined in our strategies, our pacing challenge of China and this acute threat of Russia. And these are providing challenges and obstacles and opportunities for our nation like we haven't seen in a long time. But understanding the stakes means we have to up our game, and we have to be that much better. We have to be that much better in everything that we do because the stakes are so high. The other thing that I would say is becoming more and more apparent to us is that the things that have happened in the last 20 years or so along in technology and how that's proliferated throughout our society, there are many inputs to it, but the character of war is changing. And that new character of war is going to privilege things like speed, tempo, agility, resilience, lethality, which means all of the elements that make that happen, we have to up our game. We have to be on our game more so than ever before. But there are some things that stand the test of time. And I feel a little bit nervous about this next slide because if you've all heard about it, it's going to be, okay, yeah, Vice Chief, I get it. We all know this proverb. I love this proverb. And if you can't read it clearly, I guess. Are the slides showing somewhere? Oh, there. Okay, yeah. So I feel a little bit like we all heard about the for want of a nail, but maybe some of you haven't. I love this. This is over 700 years old from this time this proverb was sort of first written down in some form or fashion. But when you think about it, I love it. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of the horse, the rider was lost. For one of the rider, the message was lost. For one of the messages, the battle was lost. And for one of the battle, the kingdom was lost, all for the want of a horseshoe nail. What does that mean? That means the details matter. That means we need to understand everyone that gets, it's probably a logistics credo. You guys probably have it in the back of one of your books or whatever, I don't know. But it is so powerful, and it's just as relevant today as ever, except for I think it's even elevated more in its importance because logistics, while we all also know, right, that amateurs dabble in strategy and tactics and professionals do logistics, we know that. But logistics, if done poorly throughout our history, have resulted in maybe not always defining defeat, but also making victory that much more challenging. And so maybe that means because of poor logistics, you might have still won the battle, but it costs you a lot more resources. It costs you a lot more of your blood and treasure. But I would tell you right now, if we fail in logistics now, we fail. There's no, it'll be tougher. We fail in logistics, we fail. And so I think this particular proverb has as much relevance or more today than it ever has. And you could apply this sort of a trail, this forensics trail on how we win or how we lose to any number of things that we have right now. So let's take, for example, in the generation of combat power, you could start with, for lack of a mechanic, the engine was lost, right? And so for lack of the engine, the fighter was lost. Now, it doesn't mean the fighter is killed in combat, but if that fighter doesn't get out there, that fighter does not launch, especially in the manner in which we anticipate we're going to have to confront the pacing challenge, which is we're going to have to be all at once, all synchronized, every single piece of combat power brought together, brought to bear to aggregate for effect and then disaggregate for survival. That's part of the new manner in which we're developing our warfighting concept. But if that engine doesn't get fixed, that airplane doesn't go, well, it's just one fighter, right? Well, what if that was the one fighter that didn't get to fill that defensive counter-air lane and protect from the long-range bombers that are attacking I put the E-7 on there. It's coming, right? But it's that command and control node. And oh, by the way, the reason why we're not on our back end right now, while we're trying to get this new platform, is because of all of the amazing work that's done to keep our AWACS flying, which is tough. I got to tell you, we struggle, and we all harumph in the building. God, the E3 is falling apart. Yeah, well, no, it would have fallen apart if not for the professionals in this room and the leaders who have kept that thing flying. It's overuse, and it's just very minimal time on the ground, but trying to still be able to keep it with the combatant commands. We've run that thing to death. But in this scenario, if that maybe it was that last fighter that didn't get in his DCA lane because he didn't have the engine, and therefore the E-7 was lost. For lack of the E-7, then your entire command and control was lost for the theater. And for lack of the command and control, then the war was lost. It's not that long of a walk to go. Every single one of these, for want of a mechanic. Not just a mechanic, the world's greatest mechanics. And so we can just, absolutely. But that's not a guarantee. That's why in the United States Air Force, we're working very hard to do all the things to ensure that we can provide the tools. These are the responsibilities we owe to you, to provide the tools for those mechanics, to provide the education and training. Let me tell you something, we're getting it. People learn differently. We need to adapt to be a more learner-centric model than a 19th century brick and mortar model. Leverage the tools that are out there, augmented reality, visual, AR, VR, all the things that we can do that can have disaggregated training, those things, asynchronous training and education, the things that adapt to different ways that people learn to make sure you have the training and the education that you need. And then when you go home, you have housing that you can afford. You have childcare available so you can be still a robust family. You have a resilient network around you that ensures you can perform with that team knowing that you and your families are going to be taken care of. All of those things have to go in to make that mechanic the world's greatest mechanic. And that's what we owe you as an Air Force enterprise, because how critical it is to actually winning this fight. You could apply the same thing for the basis of our air power for the entire logistics system. We need a resilient logistics system. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue as for want of a nail to say for want of a resilient logistics system, but it's just critical. And there's another way you could apply that, because for want of a resilient logistics system, the pallet was lost. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, we've been fighting since I was the commander of the Tank Airlift Control Center, and before that, earlier on, in-transit visibility, understanding where everything is all the time. Well, guess what? At that time, sometimes just tripping over our own selves because we didn't know how to necessarily have that visibility through our own technologies. But our adversaries know that that's one of our key advantages, is to be able to project power globally and rapidly. So they're in our systems, our cybersecurity, trying to dig into our JOPE system, which is, we've tough enough as it is, but with the bad guys also trying to, I'll just leave that aside. We've been working on that for a long time. But the bottom line is, if we don't know exactly where that pallet is and put it in the right place at the right time, and that pallet is lost, it's just a pallet, man. We move a lot of pallets. But what if that pallet is the thing that supports that spoke? That's the piece of kit, that's piece of gear that helps you set up that expeditionary location with the hub and spoke that we're trying to move into practice and make operational in order to fight in such a big theater as the Indo-Pacific theater for advantage, for example, against the pacing challenge there. If that spoke is not there, we haven't created enough dilemmas for the adversary. And once the adversary has to respect all those dilemmas, it makes the targeting calculation a little bit tougher for them. It enables us to get that advantage in the battle. It helps us win the war. But if we don't have that, then for want of a spoke, that agile combat employment falls apart. And now we've limited ourselves to fewer locations, more easily targetable. The cost curve goes in the bad guys' direction, advantages them. We lose the agile combat employment, and we've lost the entire ability to conduct a battle throughout the Indo-Pacific theater, for example. For want of that, we're back to losing the war, all for want of a resilient logistics system. So the criticality, to me, it couldn't be more clear, and I'm sure it's the same for you in the logistics career field, understanding the importance. What I'm here to tell you, though, that is encouraging, which is why it's such a great time to be in our Air Force and such a great time to be in the logistics career field, is that the rest of the Joint Force is waking up to this. And so this is all about warfighting. This logistics business is all about warfighting. The Joint Force has developed this new joint warfighting concept. I'm a big fan. This is one of those where, not since the advent of really air-land battle, between the Air Force and the Army in the Cold War, have we really had something that coalesces multiple services around a single concept about how we're going to fight. It's not perfect, and I can't go into much of it right now in depth because it's classified in general, but suffice it to say, it's something that all the services are lining up behind, the joint community is, and it really is defining a different way we're going to fight as a joint force. It's not in concrete yet, but here's what I think, to me, gives me the most hope. Within this joint warfighting concept, there are these 4 functional battles for advantage. To my mind, those 4, and I'm going to talk about them in a second, those 4 are key pillars that, as we adjust what the nuances and the puts and takes are of the overall joint warfighting concept, think of that as the tabletop. Might have a different shape, might have a little bit different size, but if you have those 4 table legs strong and reinforced and mutually supporting, doesn't matter what the tabletop is, you're going to be okay. And that's why I'm so encouraged by the fact that we're paying real attention to those 4 functional battles for key advantage, understanding how they support this concept, and as the concept moves and adapts and gets improved, they will also support that. One of the functional battles is for command and control, which is key. We've talked about that, about the speed. It's about speed, agility of information, of being able to sense, make sense, and act faster than the adversary. Information advantage, the idea of us being able to protect the information that we need to make those decisions, maybe deny the adversary the ability to make the informed decisions, and that provides advantage. Fires, that's the 3rd key battle. Being able to ensure that we have the inside force, the outside force, the proper range to be able to have effects, kinetic and non-kinetic, from all sorts of different ranges. But the 4th one is logistics. Contested logistics, understanding that we are fighting from our home station to get there, to sustain the fight within and across the entire battle space. The fact that that functional battle is in there is providing the attention, it's providing the focus, and I think it's providing some of the resources that we're going to need to really ensure victory in the future. So I am very, very excited about the fact that we have this there as a key and fundamental part. I'm hoping this means no more white carding logistics in the future. Hey, we're going to do a war game. All right, we're going to stop. All the stuff's there. Let's go fight. Oh my God, we've missed it, right? For want of a nail. We don't know if we're missing that nail. That's not happening anymore. There's this awakening, I think. And so you need to be ready for that. You need to be ready to contribute to that, because once you go through all the stages, you got this discovery of, oh my God, I got a problem. Well, who are they going to look to? I'm looking at them. I'm looking at the professionals that the rest of the force is going to look to say, how do we figure this out? Because the stakes are high, and we need to be able to find out, unlock all of the things we can do to gain that advantage. So I'm excited about this. There's things we can do as an enterprise, and we are doing as an enterprise. You don't have to go in front of a crowd of logistics professionals and talk about the importance of details, of data, of records, of being able to go back and be able to count for things. That's part of the business. But we've grown up in a world where we did that sort of in stovepipes. We did this system and that system. Each system unto itself was pretty good because the logisticians were held accountable to understand how to make decisions on that. But if I could do one thing, only a couple things, if I could go back in a Wayback Machine, one of the things I would do, I think is one of the more important ones, would be to say, hey, listen, please trust me, in the future, you're going to wish you hadn't done this. Don't develop your systems on your own. Just put those together now. Because if we'd have done that 20, 30, 40 years ago when we were developing some of these systems that were state-of-the-art at the time, but they were sort of standalone because you had to protect your own little network, we'd be so much better off. But we're working on that now as an enterprise. And one of the things I'm sure you've heard of is this spacing logistics analytic data environment, which is taking all of the data that's there, structuring it, putting it in a way through our Department of Air Force data fabric. It's one of those elements where the data can talk to each other. The insights you can gain are tremendous. And so we're very, very proud of that initiative because it's feeding into this other system that the Department of Defense is using called Advana to make better decisions, better enterprise decisions that can give us that decision advantage, that can take from the pull system of, well, I know I'm going to need this in the future, so I'm going to start asking for it now. On the other side, it's like, no, I know what you're going to need in the future, right? Conditions-based maintenance plus those sort of things. I know, and so I can feed it, and I know where it's going to be needed. So you can feed it ahead of the need as it's understood by the user. I mean, it's a brilliant concept. The data can help us do that, but we can't do it unless we have the comprehensive data from all the services, and that's why this is joint. We're feeding into a joint environment because we're all going to need to understand not only what our own service does, but our logistics system services a lot of the joint force. And keeping the data relevant and integrated, this is exciting on the enterprise level. This is just one of many things that are happening. I think is going to improve our ability with speed and with agility. Changing character of war, sound familiar? This is going to help from the enterprise level. So I'm excited about this. But I got to be honest with you, not as excited as I am about the next part, which is the innovation that comes from the individuals that I'm looking at. These are the parts, this is the secret sauce that our adversaries don't have, is this idea of interfacing with the people who are out there, seeing the challenges and also seeing the fixes that maybe the enterprise doesn't get, maybe not all the top-down can handle. It has to happen from this ecosystem of innovation that's identifying problems and solutions at the same time. Identifying problems is sort of the easy half. That stinks. But understanding how we might be able to fix it. So here, a couple examples I love. I like these for a couple reasons. Like the top one there is called Project Oregon Trail. It was just our last Aerospace Force Association symposium. We have spark tanks. And this was a spark tank finalist. But if you look at it, those are little like Army soldiers, but put in terms of it was a little like a stick figure where they're trying to demonstrate this is how we might want to do this better. I'll talk about it in a second. But just the very fact that you don't have to be high tech and have all sorts of audio visual whiz bang. You just be able to show the user what you mean. Here's what Project Arcwater is. or Project Oregon Trail. Think about the Oregon Trail. When they were out there heading west, you took what you needed. You didn't want to haul anything extra than what you need. So the idea that when we do agile combat employment, one of the things is we're going to go and maybe even open up a new airfield or do something to be able to download equipment. One of the things is we bring in a C-130, right? And then we got to offload the pallets and all this stuff. So maybe we bring in a forklift. So we're bringing in the forklift, and we got to offload the forklift. We got to put the forklift together, and we got to be able to then maybe take another trip with C-130 to bring the other pallets that you couldn't bring on the first one because you're bringing the forklift on. Well, that not only takes extra time and takes away pallet space, but guess what? This is in a contested environment, which, oh, by the way, I love the theme of the symposium, under attack. That's what we're doing. We need to minimize our exposure. So we need to shrink our footprint and shrink the amount of time that we're doing not mission business. And so bringing in equipment to enable you to do the business is a waste of time, effort, and it increases your exposure to the threat. So the idea that you would take something like this, which is sort of, you see the 4 apparatus on the tripods on each corner that enables you to take the pallets, move them to the back of the airplane. These 4, with the assistance of 4 airmen, slide it off the back, and it's on a sort of flat roller, and that can be easily pushed here or there. And it's been exercised. It's very simple. It's like Back to the Future. But guess what you've done? You fold up those tripod things and the wheel, and you can put those on the side of the aircraft. You haven't killed a pallet position. You've shrunk your footprint. You can get your equipment and supplies and things, and maybe it's your protection force there, faster, maybe with 1 fewer load, minimizing exposure. It's a brilliant idea, and it doesn't always have to have, it's not going to be 6th gen. Maybe this is 6th generation. Maybe 6th generation is simplicity. I don't know. But I think that's brilliant. That came from the airmen in the field. Lower left hand was Project Arcwater. That was last year's Spark Tank winner. The idea of the sustainment, the example that they use, if you're just going to sustain a 30 airman team for 3 days, the sustainment of that, including the power generation and the water, is about $40,000. So I'm talking small scale, but keep this in your mind when you scale it to the larger enterprise. About $40,000, 30 airmen for 3 days. But if you deploy with a different type of equipment, which this has this woven fabric into the materials of actually the structure that have solar so they can start harnessing power energy, but also to extract the humidity from the air in order to turn it into potable drinking water. How many pallets of water do we bring along? So $40,000 estimated down to $600 for 30 airmen for 3 days. So scale that. So that's not only a great savings, but you've also done what? You've saved space, you've minimized footprint, you've enabled speed and agility. So these are great ideas. And they, by the way, they tried this on, put it to a stress test 6-7 months ago in the context of Ukraine, because this idea was sort of born out of the Spangdahlem team. So in the context of Ukraine, Ukrainian folks, refugees going into Poland, we're trying to accommodate them. So a lot of children in this camp that we're teaching education, English to them, just as part of let them know there's other parts of the world that are still wanting to educate you, teach you. So within this camp, they said, well, wait a minute, why don't we try this on? So loaded up a few trucks, drove from Spangdahlem, went up there, worked like a champ. So these things are working. They're just not hypothetical. So we're putting more money into that. But that didn't come from the E-ring at the Pentagon, for sure. It came from the field. And this last one here is the digital AirLink emulator. So when you take an MQ-9 out and get ready to from a launch recovery element, one of the things that you have to do is you have to ensure that all the links are going to work. And the way we used to do it is big old massive sets of equipment and tools that you'd need, and then you'd sort of tow around the MQ-9 and you'd be able to make sure you get all the links that you need all the time. And so that took a lot of time, a lot more equipment, but not now, not with this Dale idea. That's the amount of equipment that you need. It's more mobile, and it allows you to move it around and also be able to test the links, do it faster, and do it with less equipment. So once again, this is enabling that speed and agility, minimizing the footprint, maximizing the operational capability that we can have. This is where the real secret sauce is, like I said. These are just a few, but my God, between what you all are doing, how you're feeding into other entities like Tesseract that are able to maybe move this into operational scale, but the interaction that you have with each other is key as well. That ecosystem about, hey, I got a problem. Well, yeah, I know I was working on that problem 4 months ago. I'm at step 5 of that problem. Having that dialogue between you, which is why this forum is so good for that, to understand that there are common challenges and maybe you can help accelerate each other's work on solving some of those problems by this dialogue, by things like LOA that are helping bring this together. But this is where I think we're going to get our real big advantage. We're going to do all we can from the enterprise level, but our ability to be able to ingest and adapt and scale where it makes sense, or off-ramp if it doesn't. That's almost another good lesson to learn. If it doesn't work, we need to understand when to cut bait and say, yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I can apply the lessons into something else. I think that's going to be very important for us. But this, and the audience I'm looking out on, this is what's going to make the difference. Because the stakes are high. This is not the answer we want. When the chief put out accelerate, change, or lose, this is what losing looks like. We haven't had to really consider that before. But those are the stakes. And you're the ones who are going to be accountable and responsible for helping us make sure that doesn't happen. I'll close how I open. I feel more confident. And it is a great time to be an airman, because who among us, when we raised our right hand, wanted to say, I'm going to raise my right hand because I want to do a job that's mildly important and it'll get me through the day. That's not why you did that. You raised your hand because you wanted to serve. And serving in a time of consequence, in a place of significance, what else could you want? And ladies and gentlemen, that's where we are right now. You are in a place of importance with respect to our ability to execute the fight, and you're certainly in a time of significance. So I hope you have a great, great symposium. I just hope you also understand that you're in the spotlight now. We're not going to white card logistics anymore, and we're going to be coming to you for answers. As I look out on the audience and I see the things that I've been able to see, I'm very, very confident that this will not be the outcome. We will win. Thank you very much.